The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash, with a silver hat about his head, and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. And the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
Raider Nation, we got some news. Recently released cornerback Tre'Davious White of the Buffalo Bills just had a visit with the team, and we're very excited by this move. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2019, a second team in 2020, and also was a two-time Pro Bowler on top of that. And when he's been on the field, he's been an elite player for the Buffalo Bills. He was one of the leaders of their defense that's under Leslie Frazier that's, excelled in the regular season. They've not been able to get it done in the playoffs, but he's been one of the leaders on that defense. And I know for a fact they didn't want to let him go, because their cap is tied up elsewhere with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Von Miller and some of their other stars that they're currently paying. So this is known as a cap casualty. When he's on the field, he's a great player, but their hand was forced because the one downside with Tre'Davious White is he's been injured a lot. He's coming off a torn ACL and Achilles, which is obviously a red flag. And that's why we can get him on the cheap. You're not going to sign this guy to a 3-4 year deal. We can sign him to a 1 year deal, which makes sense because, and Rashawn's going to get into this, the cornerback room is thin.
Okay, so basically 2021 torn ACL, 2023 this past year torn Achilles. And just right there, as a cornerback who is supposed to keep up with these extremely fast receivers, like for example in Buffalo playing Tyreek Hill twice a year, and you're the number one corner, you're supposed to keep up with him. Bills knew that, okay, this guy is not going to be able to keep up with a guy like Tyreek Hill. Okay, sure, they didn't want to release him, but they kind of knew, that this guy, based off his injury history, there's no way he's going to run toe-to-toe with Tyreek Hill anymore. It doesn't matter what, the numbers say or anything. Tyreek Hill is going to burn this guy every time. That being said, I honestly think that this is a move the Raiders can make on the cheap because, like you mentioned like a second ago, we just lost Amik Robertson, who was our nickel corner, our dog, our guy. We with Amik Robertson. He was our dude. Like, he was arguably probably my favorite player on the Raider defense. And losing him to Detroit is extremely, that's a big loss. It's just a big loss as it is. Like, there's no way around it. We're a thin at corner now. In the room, we got Nate Hobbs, right, starting corner now in the nickel. He's going to be starting in the slot. Then we got Jack Jones on one side. And then on the other side, as of right now, as it stands, we have Jacorian Bennett, rookie number 0. Okay, that right there is a red flag. Jacorian Bennett was just not great last year. He got benched a couple times for the likes of Sam Webb and Tyler Hall. Speaking of Tyler Hall, just signed with the Eagles today. Shout out, that's good for him. Shout out him, like getting a deal with the Eagles. Like, that's great. He's not going to be on and off the practice squad now. Didn't play for us much, as you mentioned earlier as well. But when he did, he was solid. Like, he was solid when he played for us, number 37. He was good. I liked him. But now our corner room, like I said, is Hobbs, Bennett, Jones, and Webb. And we are in deep trouble unless Tom Telesco grows a pair and goes out and tries to sign a corner. Because if we're not able to sign a corner, I mean, you're not going to go into the season with 4 corners. But as we just read the ESPN depth chart, we have guys named Cornell Armstrong, players who are literally unheard of, drafted by the Dolphins in 2018. No clue who he is. Has 20 career tackles, probably all on special teams. So no clue who that is. But other than that, I mean, there's no depth. And I don't know if you probably want to go into like, the free agents that we could add, because like you said, like we're going to say, obviously it worked with Casey Hayward and Jack Jones.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into that as well because obviously the Raiders have had a needed corner for years now. Like, we haven't had a lockdown type corner since Nnamdi Asomugha, in the late kind of 2000s. But, the thing is, we've tried to draft guys. We've tried to draft, DJ Hayden, rest in peace, in 2013, I believe. Then Gary Conley under Gruden, and now, Damon Arnett also. None of those guys panned out, and it was either off the field stuff or on the field, they just couldn't cut it. And so drafting a corner in the first round is just very hard to hit. It's hit or miss in the first round. So, in my opinion, the way that you would go about solving the corner issue, because obviously, like you mentioned, there is an issue there. We don't have depth, is through free agency. And, like you said, Casey Hayward a few years ago, he came in and he played at not an all pro level, but damn near up there. He was a fringe Pro Bowl type guy, and he contributed in games, big games. That Charger game week 18, I think we said this earlier too on the pod, crucial pick on Justin Herbert to help us win that game. And obviously Jack Jones last year brought him in as a free agent, picked off Mahomes, and he helped us win that game. And he also, yeah, he picked up the Chargers Easton Stick, one of the best interceptions I've ever seen. So, that's just two examples of guys who have worked as free agents. So, Trey White, while he like you said, he doesn't have maybe the game or the speed to cover a Tyreek Hill. That's not what you really need from him. He's a veteran presence, can teach the young guys, and that goes a long way for these, the older type players. And that he wouldn't be our corner one. Jack Jones is our corner one. He would be tasked with going up against a team's number one receiver. But this guy's done it in the past, and he brings experience to the cornerback room that drastically needs it. And another guy that I wanted to mention too, that we're both kind of high on, is Stephon Gilmore, who, he's up there in age. He's 33 years old, but he's as distinguished as any corner in the league. He was Defensive Player of the Year with the Patriots a few years ago, and that's the highest honor for a defensive player in the NFL. He's up there in age. Like, we're not going to not say that. He's 33. But I remember 2 years ago when we played the Colts, he locked down Devontae Adams on that last play of the game. I don't know if you remember that. He swatted the ball away, and he was 32, so he can still play. And obviously, he's not going to be your number one guy. That's Jack Jones. I think everyone loves Jack Jones, and he's an ascending young player. He's going to be your cornerback one in the future. So you bring a guy like Stephon Gilmore in to start opposite of him, and bring experience, because that's what you need ultimately in the cornerback room.
These guys, Trey White, Stephon Gilmore, what they do is, yes, you're right, not necessarily going matching up with toe-to-toe corner number one or wide receiver number one now at their age, getting older. I think Trey White is not even that old, but just his injury history. And Gilmore is old. Gilmore's 33. Like, that's, at the end of the corner kind of span, like that's like headed towards, not everyone is built like number 24 right here. Not everyone plays until they're like almost 40 years old, but they bring a presence into the locker room, like you said, and we're going to be defense heavy, I think, in this draft coming up. I think corner, like, now that Telesco is not signing anyone, as of right now, like with no urgency, essentially, people are just dropping like flies, signing with teams. It kind of shows that we're going to go towards the draft to draft, couple corners, if not, some super young guys, 21, 22 years old that will just be able to learn from a veteran like Stephon Gilmore, like Trey White. They'll be able to learn from these guys and kind of just, adjust their skill set. And in 2014, when Charles Woodson came back, I don't know if you remember, when obviously you do, like when Charles Woodson came back to the Raiders, he wasn't corner anymore. He switched to safety, but he still mentored all those young guys on the CB room. He mentored all those young guys, and he essentially got them to play at the level they did in 2016 when we made the playoffs. 1 year after Woodson retired, we went 12-4 and made the playoffs. But overall, it's going to be super interesting to see what happens in the draft, and it's going to have a big outcome on this season, I think. Because right now, as it stands, this corner room is not going to last. This corner room is going to give up, like, I think at least 5-6 touchdowns a game, like as the way it stands right now, which obviously it's going to grow, like, but Telesco, man, you got to show us something, dog.
Yeah, we definitely need to address the corner room. It's a big need. And like you said, we need depth, and we don't have that right now. And adding a guy like Gilmore or adding a guy like Trey White would go a long way for us, Raider Nation.